All right, welcome everyone to this episode of Shirley Talk. I'm Mike Mulroney.
And I'm Kelly Duckworth.
Kelly, are you in the medical profession at all?
No.
Not at all? Doctor, nurse, anything?
No, nothing.
Yeah, me neither. We point that out because we hate to say for entertainment purposes only, because we talk about some subjects sometimes that can be, pretty heart-wrenching. But the point is, if you hear something from this show, talk to your medical provider, your attorney, your accountant, anybody that can give you better advice than we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, well, thank you. Today we have Caretenders here with us today. We have Doug and Ashley, and we'd love to hear about what it is you all do with Caretenders. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks, Mike. We're really glad to be here. Thanks for having us. We just wanted to come and share some information about Caretenders and what we do for the community, because we know your show really kind of caters a little bit to healthcare, and we feel like that we're an important part of that community that a lot of people just don't know a lot about, and don't maybe they know about it, but maybe they don't understand.
Yeah, I didn't. We had looked it up a few days ago just to kind of see what it is you all do, and it looks like you'll cover a array of things. So, fill us in on how does somebody get involved with Caretenders? So, if I'm sick, do I reach out to Caretenders and say, help me out, or how does this work?
Well, and I'll get to that. Let me just say who Caretenders is, or who we are. Caretenders is a home health organization that does belong under the parent company of Louisiana Healthcare, which is LHC. You might see that on our website. But Caretenders is the name of who we operate in the local area. And we have several offices throughout the Louisville area and through the state of Kentucky. And we work with folks who need help, and we'll get to that specifically here in a few minutes. But primarily, we are a home health organization, and there are some rules with Medicare and other insurance companies who dictate who can't have home health. Often you'll hear about people getting therapy maybe at a facility, like you may have heard of places like court and different places like that where people go to have therapy done after they've had some surgery. But home health is something that's done in your home. It's something that's done, it's very personal, so it's private in that capacity. So all of our staff is very well trained in that capacity, and they're also screened every day for COVID. Either if they're not vaccinated, we screen our staff to make sure, because when you enter somebody's home, that's a personal space, and we want to make sure that people are comfortable with our staff coming in. So we do talk about that a lot, and our organization is very thorough with that to make sure everybody's vetted to come into your home. Yeah. But Louisiana Healthcare, let me just say this, they are an organization that has 30,000 employees across the United States, very large. However, Caretenders is just a part of LHC.
Part of that 30,000?
Part of that 30,000. So we're kind of a large company, but we have that hometown feel. Yeah. All right, we're the people who live in your hometown who work for this company. But the nice advantage of having a large company is you get better services, you get better training for staff, you have a lot more opportunities to help people in a better way than you would if you was just a very small organization who maybe didn't have all those resources.
Right.
So some people are like, oh, I don't want that corporate office coming here and taking care of me. Well, they're not. The folks at Caretenders are very home. They could be your neighbor. There are oftentimes our staff, especially in the Shelby County area, which is the office that we work out of, Ashley and I. We work out of Caretenders in Shelbyville. We're right there close to Rural King is where our main office is. And so a lot of the staff will see patients at Walmart or different places around town. So we're taking care of our hometown community.
I think that's Kentucky in general.
Yeah.
Anytime I go outside the state, they just think, all the good old people from Kentucky. And it's just kind of that home feel that it sounds like you all provide.
So a little bit overview, let me just follow up on this quickly, is that LHC, they said they operate in 35 states. 60% of the U.S. population are age 65 and older, and that's who we work with primarily is older. You don't have to be old and on Medicare to have our services, but a lot of those folks in that age category do fall into some of
What was the age again?
65.
Okay. I've got a few more years before I hit that. Kelly looked at me like I'm getting close.
But we do take care of patients that are 40, maybe if they've had a knee replacement or something. Yeah. Things, you don't have to be old to have our services, but I'm just saying that the majority of our patients are in that category of age. We also partner with hospitals. We are partnered with almost 400 hospitals across the country. So we're connected. They are a good referral source for our organization of LHC. Now that's LHC, but Caretenders, we'll talk about us specifically here in this Louisville area, in the Louisville market. The counties who touch Jefferson County is where you're going to see Caretenders from, and that's where we operate of. And it's a very patient-centered, focused care that we provide. Patient-centered, some people say, what does patient-centered mean? because you hear all these medical terms, and you try to describe. People you go to the hospital or any doctors, and you kind of get inundated with all this information.
Yeah.
Like, what are they talking about?
We need a medical dictionary.
So when we say patient centered, that just means that we know people, that we understand your need, and we want to tailor the health care for what you need.
Yeah.
For what you need. Now, we're going to guide that health care or that plan of care for you to help get you to a better place. But at the same time, we do let you have some say in that plan of care, because it is tailored to your specific needs of what you need. And the organization of LHC, it was started in 1994 down in Louisiana. It was provided for patients who didn't have a lot of money, who didn't have a lot of resources. And so from there, it's just grown and grown and grown.
Right.
But we as Caretenders are just part of that group. So our primary mission is all about helping people. I can let Ashley speak, because I don't want to take all the mic time here. But
I was going to say,
bring Ashley in. She will talk to us a little bit about explaining what we do specifically for patients. If y'all have questions along the way, please ask those. But Ashley, maybe just give a little brief overview of what we do and what we provide.
Yeah. So you asked, like, how do we get referrals? Like, yes, you can call us, but home health, like, you have to have a medical reason, for us to come out. So
right.
We can't just say, you don't feel like leaving your home and you want to have therapy in your home. Like, we can't just come out for that. But you have to be homebound, and I put that in quotations, because that can
not physically able to leave your home, I guess.
Yes, but I say I put in quotations because it's kind of gray. So the way that Medicare defines that is it has to be a taxing effort for you to leave your home. So most people...
That's me every day.
I'm right there with you, honestly. But so some people will say, well, they can drive themselves to church, or they can drive themselves to the grocery store, or whatever. We can still come to your home and provide services. It just has to be a taxing effort, or that you can't leave your home at all. So like if you can't drive, or, physically you can't leave.
So basically you should be in a hospital bed, but you prefer to stay at your home, and that's kind of where you all come in.
Yes and no. I mean, you don't have to be hospitalized. Part of what we do is we allow people to age in place in the comfort of their own home. But going back to, there has to be a medical need. So yes, you can call our office and say, hey, I'm struggling a little bit physically. Can you come out and do some physical therapy for me because I can't drive? Well, so then we get our orders from whomever your primary care physician is. So yes, we can come out, but sometimes it's just a little bit of a process. And we bill our services through Medicare. Like Doug said, you don't have to have Medicare, but whomever your insurance company is, typically it's Medicare. But the insurance company will basically come to us and want us to prove to them that it's taxing for them to go out. They need us to come into their home. So we have nurses that come in your home. We have physical therapists, occupational therapy, speech therapy, social worker, home health aides. We have all kinds of resources. So part of what we do is to educate the patient or the caregiver. In our line of work, it's a lot of caregivers. We have a lot of Alzheimer's patients, cancer patients, people that are very ill. So where there's a resource to educate, because we don't go in every single day. We come, depending on what services you have and like what your diagnosis is, 2 to 3 days a week. We're only there about an hour at a time. So if you have IV fluids, you're coming out of the hospital, you're going home on IV fluids, the nurse will come out that day if we need to, but typically the next day, and we will educate a caregiver. Or like if you can do it yourself, that's great too. But part of our job is to, because we're not, Doug comes from hospice. Well, we're on the other end of the spectrum. We want you to get better and live independently.
Is that typical of the people you all work with?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because we have therapy, like from a home health point, like our goal is to get you better so that you can live independently in the comfort of your own home. It's not end of life, it's therapy. So you've had some type of surgery, knee replacement, hip replacement, you get sick, go into the hospital, come home on IV fluids, whatever the case may be. We're just there as a resource and a support. Part of our job is to keep you out of the hospital, which is what obviously everybody wants. So we're there checking on you, educating you, monitoring for signs and symptoms of infection. Post COVID, I know we've just come out of the pandemic or going back into it, whatever.
Depends on which day you're at.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So, we, especially with people not going to the hospital, not going to facilities, we stepped in because we went to people's home. Everybody was locked up in their home. So we would come in, we saw COVID patients every day. And there is a lot of aftermath from that, like respiratory, other things. So we have a lot of programs that we offer. Some of them are therapy driven. Some of them are given by the nurse, but it's just like to aid in lung capacity or, if it's anything physical. So we can come out for maintenance. Like you don't just have to have a surgery for us to come out or out of the hospital. Like we go because people have Alzheimer's and they're just not managing. And that's where occupational therapy and speech therapy, along with physical and nursing, but mainly OT and ST, there's a lot of things that they can do for Alzheimer's patients just to help set up the home, make sure that it's a safe environment, make sure that the caregivers know how to handle them because it can be very taxing to care. I don't know if y'all have ever had an experience, but caring for someone with dementia or Alzheimer's.
I was going to say, I've had some friends that their spouse had it, and it's horrible to watch. And have a spouse be a caregiver is very difficult because it's very, very time consuming.
Oh.
The one thing you mentioned, I was going to ask about that is, the aging of America with the baby boomers hitting an all-time high of retirement. Is the growth of caretenders and probably competitors really growing rapidly right now? Because you mentioned you're trying to keep them out of the hospital, and there's a reason for that. You don't not that you don't want them in hospital, but we don't have the capacity for that.
We don't.
Well, and we work with like long-term care facilities as well and assisted living
But they
facilities.
can't build enough of those either.
No.
There is a bed shortage
yeah.
for long-term care. Like Valhalla, that's over in Middletown. Like they have a year waiting list for their long-term care beds. And all over the market, that's like the tune that I hear from administrators and director of nursings is they don't have the capacity. So that's where home health comes into play. And caregivers, if you're not medical, even if you are medical, if it's your mother or your father or your spouse, it's devastating to watch them because they're in front of you, but they're not there. And it's very frustrating. You have to live in their reality, but when you're in the situation, it's hard. It is taxing mentally, emotionally, physically, in every way, shape, size, or form.
It's kind of a reverse of when you have kids, you're taking care of them
Exactly.
24/7, and it kind of reverts back to that,
Absolutely
And,
right.
But yeah, out by us, well, you're too. They built some brand new assisted living facilities out by us, tons of them, and they were full.
Oh.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And so I really see how home health care has got to be such a growing business right now because there's just not enough places to put people.
Right. And that's, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think the statistic used to be 11,000 people a day turn 65.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's been going on for years.
I've got a few more years. But yeah, I just, that's crazy.
So to think about that, to wrap your mind around that, there is not enough hospitals, there's not enough long-term care to take care of our families.
I've actually seen, and I don't know if it's still true or not, where people say, "Oh, I live in Louisville, but my mom is in Cincinnati because they didn't have enough space here," or in Florida. Or it's just really tough on the family to get to those people. But I guess they really don't have any other options if there's no spots available.
Well, and my thing too, coming out of a pandemic, I don't think I'd want my mom or dad in a long-term care facility with all those extra people,
Sure.
So this past year, probably home health would have been ideal.
Yeah. And a lot of those like assisted livings struggled because, like your family couldn't come in.
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder how
So they
often they
kept them
sat in a
home.
room all day long. It's almost like a prison cell.
Yeah. So everybody struggled during the pandemic, but especially the geriatric population
Yep.
because they didn't get much physical activity because you couldn't go out. You did sit in your room, but also the depression is just skyrocketed, and that affects every part of your body and physically too. So, and everybody didn't get surgeries and they just sat at home. And so people have suffered and they have deteriorated. And so now that we're coming out of it to go back into it. But yes, we are booming. But we do go into the assisted living facilities because that is their home.
Right.
So we provide services there as well.
But I can just see the business, like you said, 11,000 people turn 65 a day. This has got to be a booming business. That's got to be great for people because they have the freedom of being in their own home. And still being able to have visitors and have you all come take care of them.
So let me put another little caveat on that as well. Not only does that mean people being eligible for a lot of services that Caretenders provides, but now we have a shortage of healthcare workers.
Yeah.
Well, that was my next question. Is I see LPN on yours, and weren't you a nurse or something originally?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you all like all hands on deck? I've got to give up my marketing role and go be an LPN today, or I've got to give. How does that work? Because I've seen the shortage. That's crazy. At one time, it seemed like we had enough for about 6 months, and then all of a sudden, that's all you hear is nurses getting bonuses and sign-on bonuses to come work. So, is that a struggle right now?
Very much. There's at least in the Louisville market, we can talk about that. The Louisville market, there's more jobs than there are staff. And so that's why you see a lot of these hiring bonuses and a lot of retention money being paid to staff to stay or to please come work for us. So at our facility or Caretenders in Shelbyville, we it's always an all hands on deck perspective. Now, those of us who work in the office, obviously we have roles to do that are important, but the patient at the bedside is obviously the most important.
Yeah.
So we do try to do what we can do, but we still, if those of us in the office have to go out and do some care, then we have to come back and make up the work that wasn't being done because we have to process that paper. It's just a lot of paperwork that has to get processed.
I hate paperwork.
And it's so that has to get done. So it's very taxing on the staff that are working now because we are growing very much. So if anybody was listening to this podcast as a nurse and would like to come work for us, a PT and OT, please look us up. We're a great
once
organization.
this episode comes out, we'll share it all over social media. You might have a few people apply. But I got some friends that would go work in Louisville and Humana. They're nurses. They would go work at Humana and places like that, and then they're switching over and doing this kind of thing. So because they got really bored sitting in an office all day, they like actually getting back in the field. And some of my nurse friends, like, I'd rather be in the ER. It's exciting and more fun. I don't feel like I'm sitting around all day. So but I would see that where you would probably get some nurses that just want to get back in the field and do this kind of thing.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes. So it's a challenge to try to keep the staff and then grow because you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So we got to make sure we have staff to take care of people because it doesn't do us any good to sign you up but we can't come see you for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
that's very disheartening.
Yeah.
So but we do as an organization, we're 24/7. We have an on-call. If you have a need after hours, you call the on-call service. We have a nurse that's on call who can come out and see you if necessary. So we try to take care of the patient every day. And
people abuse that. Call it 2 or 3 in the morning and
it happens. But
eat a glass of tea and think you're going to come out and help them out.
It does happen.
I don't know that it gets abused as much as we think it does. Thankfully, because oftentimes they'll call the nurse and they'll call the patient first before they go to their home just to make sure sometimes they can talk them through what they need. Right. They don't physically always have to go out, but sometimes they do. If it's a blood pressure, maybe somebody's having some blood pressure problems. Because our goal is to try to keep those folks out of the ER. One is because ER is really is needed for people with emergencies. Not that these folks aren't having one. If they're having an emergency, we send them. Please go to the ER. If you can't breathe and we can't get to you, please go to the ER. We're not going to rectify that. But our goal is to keep those hospitals from having those readmissions. Keep the ERs more open for true emergencies that are necessary immediately. And there's a lot of emphasis being put on that from Medicare, this healthcare in general. They're just trying, because we talked about all the taxing on the resources that we have. So what are we doing from our part to help that? So that there's financial incentives sometimes it's in that. If we can help keep people from going back to those ERs, that's good for us as an organization. But at the same time, it's really not driven by finances, but that just helps us to achieve that, put policies in place and make things happen. It helps us to hire more people to help make that happen. It's a very kind of a hamster wheel kind of thing.
Yeah, I just can't imagine. So you said it's primarily 65 and older, but you had mentioned something about if somebody's dealing with something in their 40s or hip replacement or something, how do people get to you guys? Do the insurance companies or the doctors recommend you, or how do I call 1-800-Caretenders and y'all show up? Or
Typically, when you are in a hospital setting or long-term care setting for any reason, it's just kind of their protocol to then set you up with home health.
offer you the option. Is
Yes.
it an option, or do they say you need to go to home health?
They'll typically recommend it. Like everybody will do their evaluation, so like therapy, PT, OT, eval. But then whatever the nurse or the doctor recommends, if it's not like a therapy thing. But typically, if they see the need, then they will recommend and then make the referral to home health. Now that doesn't always happen. Sometimes they don't necessarily like identify that need in the hospital. So then the patient will go home typically, or they should make a follow-up with their PCP. And then once they go in there, they've been home out of that hospital setting for a little while. Because when you're in the hospital, it's kind of set up for you to get better.
But then they rush you out of there.
They do.
Yeah.
Then you get home and it's like, oh, now what do I do? And then you are like, so you go to your doctor and like, this is the struggles that I'm having. So then the doctor will then reach out to us as well sometimes. And then sometimes, like you said, you just like patients will call us from their home like, hey, I saw you on Facebook, or, how they have had us before, whatever. Like, can you all please come back out? I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. Sure, we can. We just have to get an order from your doctor. In those instances, sometimes it's just a little bit of a process, because if they haven't seen their doctor or had a recent hospital stay, then we have to get what Medicare terms a face-to-face visit. And it's basically you've seen your doctor and it's medically necessary for you to have our services. But Caretenders, Medicare covers our services 100%. Now, if you're a younger person, we can see all ages as long as you are homebound.
So do most insurance cover this type of care?
Yes, absolutely. Medicare covers it 100%. The younger folks that don't have Medicare, it just depends on the insurance and your policy, and everybody, there's obviously a deductible or an out of pocket or whatever, but we always run those benefits well before we ever come out. So if you have any financial liability, so if you have a knee replacement, you want Caretenders for a couple weeks before you can drive to outpatient, we're going to run the benefits and say, you don't have any financial liability, just FYI, you've got $1,000 out of pocket, but I'm sure the hospital's not billed that yet. So it's, very rare that you would have anything, but you'll know it before we come out, and you'll say, yes, I agree to pay that, or no, I can't. And then,
Okay. I definitely need to look that on my insurance.
Yeah.
Upper age coming up here soon.
Gosh.
I think the one thing I have really been impressed with the home health from Caretenders is how they really help people improve. It's not just a service that comes to your house and we check a box. These folks are really helping you get better. And the families, everybody gets a survey after we've had our services, and they send us these surveys back. And you wouldn't believe the amazing comments I get from people. They're so thankful for their physical therapist that came to their home and helped them learn this exercise or help them be able to walk. Because a lot of things we take for granted, right? We just go brush our teeth. We just get up and go brush our teeth, right?
Yep.
But sometimes everybody doesn't have that opportunity. Just the simple things.
Yeah.
So these folks come to your home. The occupational folks will show you how to move about in your house, how to get to where you need to be, and how to do that safely. Watch for these steps, remove those rugs, things that we just don't think about. So these folks come in your home, they can really assess it. But these folks that we're taking care of, they really do get better. And it's just amazing. It's very rewarding for our staff to see people improve, because that's our whole goal, was to help people.
Yeah, I had a friend that had a heart attack. He was in his 40s. While he was in the hospital, had a stroke. Or it may have been reversed. He may have had a stroke, then had a heart attack while he was in the hospital. Anyway, I don't know which home health care people helped him, but it was amazing. He was, the one right side of his body was paralyzed, and he had to learn how to talk, eat, everything again. And like you said, we take that stuff for granted, but that was not a good fit for him to be sitting in a hospital room 24/7.
Right.
For him to be in the comfort of his own home, to have people like you all come out and take care of him. One, it helped his wife, because she's sweet anyway, but she was doing what she could. But it saved his life to have the home health care people like you all come out there and help him.
It can be very overwhelming for
It
the
is.
patient and the family. It's like Ashley was talking about earlier. Until you've gone through something like that, you just can't appreciate what people have to go through.
No, I didn't ever think about that stuff, because I've never seen that before. But again, he had to learn how to do everything like he was a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And to see his progress because of the home health was pretty cool.
Typically, home health, and Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think about 6 weeks are we with the patient, and then they recertify if they still need our services.
Typically 60 days.
60 days.
And then if they still need more services, then yeah.
They're reevaluated. We determine, so it's not forever that we're in. It's kind of a short period of time in reality. But if you still need that service, we're still going to reevaluate you. You may have to talk to the doctor again just to make sure. And that way we're still with you to help you get to where you need. Our goal is to get you to where you need to be. We set goals, we set things to help you achieve, and that's what we got to achieve. And insurance does require us to do that anyway, because that does stop fraud, for one. And all of us as taxpayers are tired of seeing fraudulent things take our money.
But you got to show progress.
Yes, you have to show progress.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Ashley, what do? You say LPN on your tag, but you came in with a bubbly personality. You don't. You're got to be in sales or something.
I am. So, my title is account executive. So
Okay.
It's a fancy way to say sales and marketing.
Right.
But I wear many hats. Some days I am a social worker. Some days I'm a therapist for the family members and the patients. But a big part of my role is sales and marketing. So I just build and maintain relationships. So another part of my job is liaison. So what that means, essentially, I set people up to go home on home health. And how I do that is I build relationships with hospitals, with nursing homes, assisted living facilities, doctors' offices, so that they know that Caretenders exists. I get asked all the time, especially in the community, like, hey, Ashley, I know you work for Caretenders, but what is that? And I take that for granted. It's home health, but it's not Caretenders home health. It is, but it's just, hey, I'm Ashley from Caretenders. So I have to educate, I'm also an educator, educate people on what home health is, who qualifies, how it all works. And so, I set people up to go home. I go to the bedside, like if someone's discharging from the hospital or the nursing home, I go and I meet with them and I say, hey, Miss Smith, I'm Ashley from Caretenders. I know that you're discharging home today or tomorrow. I don't know if you realize it or not, but they've made a referral for you to have home health. Are you okay with that? Because it's always a patient choice, and we have patients that refuse all the time. They typically call us 2 to 3 days later after they get home because they're overwhelmed. Like I said earlier, like when you're in a hospital or a nursing home, it's set up for you to be successful. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm great. I'm walking and everything's fantastic. And then you get home and your environment is maybe a little too cluttered. There's steps that you're struggling with. You can't safely take a shower or a bath, or you can't transfer toileting, like things like Doug said that we take for granted, and they just don't think about until they get home. So we always give them the option though, and so they're like, yeah, that's great. And I'll say, okay, well, your doctor has ordered for you to have a nurse, physical therapist, occupational therapist. We're going to come out. The nurse is always the first one to see you if a nurse is ordered in. And then after that, everybody will do their evaluation. If somebody's not needed, they won't continue to see you, but we bill your insurance directly, work with your doctor. Typically there's no financial liability. But most of the time they're always just more than willing to let us come. I'm very thankful. I met with an elderly couple. They were getting ready. The husband was there. He was going to discharge home. And I came the day before discharge. They didn't realize that a referral had been sent to us. And I met with them, and the wife was, she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to see you. I thought we were being thrown to the wolves. I didn't know what the next steps were, what we needed to do. And honestly, just that 5-minute conversation and knowing that somebody is going to come just makes the world of difference. It puts their mind at ease, because she thought, well, I'm going to have to care for my husband, and she struggles herself. But knowing that somebody will be there tomorrow, because typically we'll see you within 24 hours. Sometimes in a pinch, due to staffing, it could be 48, but we always try, if at all possible, 24 hours. And she was just so grateful to know that we would be there the next day on a Saturday, just to make sure that they had what they needed, check on him, make sure everything was okay. Sometimes they need more equipment in their home that maybe the facility didn't realize. So, not only are we there to care for the patient, but also their caregiver, whomever that may be. And those caregivers need it, because they just don't know. Doug and I had started in Shelbyville a support group for caregivers. It doesn't necessarily have to be just Alzheimer's or dementia, but usually that's who it is. But these caregivers need some help.
Yeah, when we first started Shirley's Way, the one thing we talked about doing, we did it a few times, we haven't done it in a while, is like give the caregivers of people who take care of the patients a gift card to go get dinner with someone, just to get them out of the house for a little while. Because again, if you're not a caregiver by trade, doing that for someone, if you're not everybody has the empathy to handle something like that.
Right.
And you find yourself getting short with them and things like that. But, you've got things going on too. But it's just it's not everybody's designed to be a caregiver. So, yeah, it's good that you all keep them in mind as well.
Yeah.
Do you ever, given the generation that you're dealing with, they grew up being frugal. Do you get a lot of people, the first thing out of their mouth is, what's this going to cost
Every
me?
time. Almost every time.
Everybody's so skeptical these days of the medical system because, I went in for heart something a few weeks ago and I ended up having to pay $1,600 out of my pocket.
Oh gosh.
And I got those bills 2 months after I had the treatments. I thought I was in the clear, but so it's just crazy. Is it? So I'm sure you get those concerns right up front.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, kind of going back to what I said, we always run your benefits. So if you just have Medicare or even a managed Medicare like Humana or Anthem, typically you're not going to have, with Medicare, you have no out-of-pocket. Like straight traditional Medicare pays for our services 100%. There is no financial liability. With some of the managed, every once in a while there is, or there's like a deductible or co-payment or whatever it is that like the hospital's not showing that they've billed yet or whatever, because they're still in the facility. But before we ever come out, we let them know right up front, because that is a major concern. And a lot of them are on a fixed income because they're retired, they're on Social Security, they can't afford it. So typically there's no copay or anything, but they'll know if there is.
Does this fall under the long-term care part of your insurance? Is that something totally different?
I don't think so.
I think it's different.
Okay.
I think it's a separate.
We bill Part A, which is what like the hospitals and nursing homes bill. And then like outpatient therapy bills Part B. So that's why typically like if you go outpatient therapy, there's usually like a copay every time you go. And that's even with someone on Medicare or some of the others. But we bill Part A, so there's no copay or deductible or whatever with Medicare.
And we also work with the patients at the VA. We take care of veterans as well.
Okay.
And being a veteran myself, that's always important to do because those folks need our services equally as well. We're also part of the Norton system. There's something called Norton Home Health, and we are partnered with Norton Healthcare. And so Caretenders, they're called Norton Home Health, but they're kind of work with Caretenders. We share staff. It's some of the same staff see the same patients.
We don't understand it either.
So it's a bigger on the business side, but as far as the patient care, it's the same folks. Yeah. But that way, if you're at the hospital with Norton, you will probably get an opportunity to select the Norton Home Health. Again, it's your choice. You don't have to. But Norton Home Health is basically Caretenders folks who will be taking care of you as well.
Sounds like they outsourced that part of it to you all, and that's how that worked out. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I didn't know you all existed until we talked the other day. So, but I see the growing need because of the age of the population right now.
And also just within the growing population, but this past year, COVID, a lot of people didn't go into the hospital for elective surgeries. There was a lot of things that didn't happen. They put off because they wanted to wait till things were safer, which makes total sense. So now a lot of those folks are going back to the hospital to get what they didn't get. And it was just creating an upflow at the hospital side for surgeries and knee replacements or whatever was going on, which then spills over into the home health world. So we're getting that as well. And then usually getting past July or August, people have met their deductibles. Mm-hmm. So there's more elective surgeries then going on too. So at the end of the year, it tends to get busier for home health as well because of just the dynamics of the way insurance works.
Yeah. With COVID, did y'all have to show up in people's homes in spacesuits? How did y'all? Yeah.
We did.
I mean, I can't imagine what you had to put on to walk in that door.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Goggles, face shields. We always still wear masks now. If you go to a patient, anytime we do patient care, whether you're vaccinated or not, we're wearing a mask. And so, because we want to make sure the patients are safe, because a lot of folks at this point in their life, sometimes if they've been ill, their immune system is already down a little bit, and we don't ever want to contribute to a problem. So, and some of it too is just that people don't feel comfortable with us coming in not wearing a mask. So we always wear a mask. We always check to make sure we're not running a temperature. We make sure that our staff is safe and well. If somebody calls me today and says, "Hey, I'm running a temperature, I'm not feeling well," they're not going to work today, because we're going to err on the side of caution more than anything.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of healthcare people say they wish the mask would have been implemented a long time ago. Some hate it, but think about all the things you're exposed to. Take COVID out of the way, all the things
Right.
you're exposed to. I wonder how many medical and teachers too that are exposed to colds and disease and all that stuff. So the mask has probably killed a lot of that stuff over time.
A lot of people have really learned how to wash their hands this past year.
Yeah, you don't hear much about the flu these days
No.
because people have washed their hands 27 times in the last hour,
Right.
which is a good thing.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in today. It's amazing what you all do, and we'll spread the word definitely.
Thank you for having us. We're
Absolutely.
always
Thank you.
willing to talk and answer questions for anybody who wants to call and just don't understand, or if they think they need a referral, call and talk to us. We'll be glad to tell them how to get that done.
Okay.
And help people is what our goal and mission is.
Well, if you got a number or something we can call, put the information in our podcast description. We'd be glad to do that. Put your personal cell phones in there too. We'll make sure we get that
We'll
out.
get
All right,
those 2 a.m. phone calls.
Right away.
I need a Diet Coke. Can you come get it for me? Well, thanks so much. Kelly, finish it up. How do you help Shirley's Way?
Well, we're getting close to August now, so 8 months into this year, but we're still pushing hard for $1,010 monthly donors. I think we're about a quarter of the way there, I think.
Yep.
So we could really use your help on that. You can go to shirleysway.org to learn more. Check out our raffles. We have 3 weekly Split the Pot raffles, queenofheartslive.org, jokerswildlive.org, and wheelofcashlive.org.
Yeah, those pots are getting high. I'm going to start buying my own tickets
No, you're
so I
not.
can get some money in that. So
Not allowed.
Kelly won't let me buy tickets. I'm just kidding. All right, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you.